What's going on, all you Minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and today I get to talk about one of my favorite graphic novels of all time, and which way is the better way to collect it. So, talking about From Hell. Stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Now, this is one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. It made it to my top 13 favorite horror graphic novels of all time. I did a list last year. If you want to check that out, I'll put the link up above. But this is From Hell, written by Alan Moore, and the artwork is by Eddie Campbell. Now, the least you know about this particular book, the better off you are. I just want to showcase the artwork and then compare the differences. So this is the original, this is the one that I got. The original comics came out from 1989 and were published all the way to 1998, I believe. And then in 1999, IDW, or Top Shelf, published a collection like this, a graphic novel collection. So this is the latest printing of that. I want to say I got this back in 2015, I think. And then, because I upgraded from the trade paperback. And then last year, late last year, early this year, they released this version right here. This is the Master Edition. And as it states, it's in color. Sometimes I think when things are recolored, they don't really turn out that well. Well, this is different because Eddie Campbell, the artist on the book, decided to go back and add colors to it. So I was intrigued, so I needed to check it out. And I finally got a chance to reread it, and oh my gosh, it's taken me months to read it. As a matter of fact, I think this was part of my haul of March or April, I don't know. But it's been a long ride, and it was nice to revisit this horrific book. So let's look at the differences here. From this angle, I think you could probably tell that the main difference is that this one here is just a little bit taller. But really, it's not at all. The pages are at the exact same. There you go. So you could get a little bit of an idea of how much taller it is. Very, very, very small difference. And like I mentioned, the pages are the same dimension. Now, the spines, From Hell. Here we have Alan Moore, Eddie Campbell, same here. The Top Shelf logo down there. The knife instead of the Master Edition there, and then the back of the book. I believe these are the same blurbs as here, except they added a lot more blurbs back here. So yeah, let's keep going with this overview. We'll look at some of the artwork from the black and white, then we'll look at the artwork in the colored version and talk about the differences. So here we go. The original way that this was printed in black and white. And this just happens to be my copy. There are several copies out there with different covers on them. This book has been printed so many times. I think it's had a total of 4 different publishers. Here's your table of contents, the way they originally came out in different issues. So you have 14 different chapters, the epilogue, the maps, and to me, the most important thing, the appendix, both 1 and 2. Now, it starts off with these 2 old men on the seashore, just talking about a case. You really don't know what they're talking about. You really don't know what they have to do with the story, and it's a little bit of a slow burn. So they're talking about an old case that went completely unsolved, and you know that at one time they were detectives. And in this particular case they're talking about, it got so bad that they had to actually look above their regular grounds. They had to go and explore other ways of trying to solve a case. So much so that there was some psychic detective involved. But that's what this prologue is. And then we get into the first chapter. And this is the chapter here that introduces us to one of the characters. And that is Prince Eddie. That's right. This is a historical fiction. So I'm sure most of you have already heard what this is about. You're probably coming into this video because you've watched the movie with Johnny Depp. Or you know that Alan Moore has written this story about Jack the Ripper. And if that's what you're expecting out of this book, man, you're going to be so either disappointed or surprised. Because it's not just about Jack the Ripper. Yes, Jack the Ripper is in here as well as the murders. But it is so much more than that. It is a study of human nature. It's wonderful. I love this book. And right now, I just need to say, before you go any further, this is definitely not for kids. This is definitely not for the faint of heart. You can't stomach mutilation of animals or just some deep graphic violence. This is not for you. We are talking about Jack the Ripper. So, just as a warning, mature content. So we meet Prince Eddie. He has a son. with this lady, and the family doesn't want the son. The family wants him not to be married, so they pull him away from his family. It's rough. It's a rough read at first. Then we're introduced to this Freemason named William Gull, and he plays a big role in this book. So that's just one aspect of the book. And like I said, it's historical fiction, so you actually get characters here that were alive during this time. So all of this does take place during the Whitechapel murders. So during the end of the late 1888, I think, is when this takes place. So this is all the Victorian era of England and the motives of Jack the Ripper. So again, I gotta be careful flipping through here, but this is what the artwork looks like. And remember the two old men at the very beginning? Well, you get to see them later on. You don't get to see them until, I think, chapter 6 or so, and when they're a little bit younger. So they are detectives, and they're going around trying to solve these murders that are going around. So I think what always astounded me about this particular book was that going in here, I had seen the movie. This was a time when I was out of comics. I knew about From Hell, but I had never read the issues as they were coming out, or I've gotten the anthologies. And when I came back to comics in 2002, 2003, I wanted to read the graphic novel that the movie was based on, because I went to go see the movie with Johnny Depp, and I really liked it. And I had no idea it was based on the comic book, because I don't think they tell you until the very end, based on the graphic novel by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. But I wanted to know more. So I bought the graphic novel. It was a trade paperback, and loved it. As I mentioned, you know, this is not just a story about Jack the Ripper, but it's also the women that are in here that were victims of him. And it's about that gender war. This is a deep freaking story. I mean, there's a reason why there's an appendix back here, and I'll show it in a little bit. But it's about the occult. It's about the supernatural. It's about your place in this world. And holy crap, is it freaky. Like, just the things that happen through this. Oh, man. And it's so freaking sad, too. How people are just able to give up when they have no hope. I love the fact that they include things in here like the royal family may have been a part of all this, because they don't want this bastard child or anybody to know that Prince Freddie had, you know, a wife outside of royalty. So it's interesting because all of this was written before the horrible thing that happened to Princess Diana, and now everybody's into this whole conspiracy theory about maybe the royal family isn't as good as they say they are, or were. But then they throw elements of the occult in here. One of my favorite chapters is chapter 4. And chapter 4 shows the character here of Dr. Gull, William Gull that I talked about, the Freemason, taking a ride amongst the city here. And here you get to find out what the big picture might be. And it's a slow burn. I'm not going to lie. The book is a slow burn. There are times you're going to be lost. You're not going to be knowing what the hell you're reading. But it's Alan Moore. You just got to go along with the ride. In the end, he knows where the ride is going to take us. I think for the most part. Sometimes it feels like he himself is along for the ride. But I love this setup. It's a slow burn until you realize what this is all about. And this is when you start seeing the whole talk of gender war, where at one time, you know, we worshipped this idea of these goddesses, these women that are able to create life. And then men fought against this. They revolt against this. So they started building these giant buildings, these obelisks, as this guy right here keeps on calling them. And it's not until you see all of them together in the city that you realize, holy crap, this is genius. It's one of my favorite books for a reason. But like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. I completely understand people not wanting to read this, because, I mean, there's a lot of graphic scenes in here. And who is Jack the Ripper? Do you get to find out? When we started off at the beginning, you get to see those two detectives talk about a case that went unsolved. Is it the case of Jack the Ripper? Well, I will say that every question that you have will be answered here. And like I said, the least you know about it, the better off you are. I think sometimes going into a story, you're better off not knowing exactly what's going to happen or what characters are revealed to be who. But there's a lot of twists and turns and a lot of surprises in here. And a lot of it came from Alan Moore just being obsessed with Jack the Ripper after, I think he watched some kind of documentary. There was an introduction, or maybe about a bit in the appendix, where he called Neil Gaiman up and told him of this idea after watching some documentary. And then, was it The Silent Truth, I think? There's a little bit of that from Knight's book. And he took aspects of that, but he also disagrees with some of the conspiracies that Knight had in his book. But anyway, those are the kind of things you're going to see in here. Besides all the violence, there's some big character studies here. And just don't get attached to too many of the characters. That's all I will say. So all the way in the back here, after the story is over, we have Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. And each one laying out in what page, what panel these characters are based from. Whether they were real, or whether they were from essays, or journals, or just characters that are based on real people. This is a really cool freaking... I know, this time around when I read it, I did not read the appendix. I read it one time and that was enough for me. I have a little bit better understanding of what Alan Moore was thinking. Maybe. Probably not. Not even close. But it is interesting and it does help fill that story out some more. And it's both collected in this, and then we're going to look at the Master Edition. So both the Appendix 1 and 2 are also in here. So what is the Master Edition? What's the difference? Well, this, as it states, is in color. But the reason they did this in color was because Eddie Campbell, the co-creator of this particular series, wanted to go back and recolor every single panel of the book. But it's not just colors, because he also adds slight differences, and sometimes panels are redrawn, and I'll showcase some here in a little bit. But I did want to showcase what the colors look like for those people like me that are fans of From Hell and its grittiness and how dark it is. Because we are talking about the Industrial Revolution, this era where the sky was just filled with black and everything looked like nighttime during this era. When I was reading the original version, I remember that. I was like, does it ever get like daylight in this freaking city? But it's not, if you think about it. If you look at old pictures around that time, you have roofs that are completely black because everything was smoked stagged. So it really sets the tone of that era and the story. So I was worried that this might sharpen it, that it would be just these new colors and it would just be too bright and vibrant. It didn't. It's a subtle color that he adds to his artwork, and it works so damn well. I love it. I'll talk about how dark it is, and here it is, a light scene. But these are very vague. Most of the time, the stories center around dark areas. But speaking of art, I did want to focus on that. That's one of my favorite things that Eddie Campbell did, was he has this sketchiness and cross-hatching that he does with his artwork. It always looks like it's raining in some of these panels, but it's just used to showcase the obscurity of all these people in the background that don't have a role to play in this particular story. I thought that was a really cool trick. He did that in the original black and white, and I'm just showcasing what the colored version looks like. And I'll be comparing some of the panels here in a minute. Now, this book retails for $49.99. The original hardcover, the black and white one, that one's $39.99. Both of them have 576 pages. Now, the paper quality on this particular volume is a glossy finish to it. And I thought that would be a problem because of how dark this story is. I thought the artwork might work better in a matte finish like the original printing. But honestly, it makes it look better. I don't know. And that's probably because of the colors that Campbell added. Now, the appendix, both of them are still back here. But like I mentioned, even later on, there's a little side story that's drawn, and that's also in color. Now, let's look at the subtle differences. All right. So, same pages, same layout, characters stand the same. However, if you look at his eyes that are staring off into the distance as he's thinking back, whereas over here, they're kind of staring back a little bit. It's just little subtle things like that. Now, later on, some panels are completely redrawn, such as this meeting right here from Chapter 3. I'm not sure if Campbell just got bored with drawing the same women in the same poses. By the way, here we have a 9-panel grid. Love when they do that. But as you can tell, the first top 3 panels are redrawn from different angles. Close-up of her face right there. And these are 2 of the 5 women that play a big role in here. And I'm sure you've probably heard of one, Mary Kelly. But there's also Polly, Annie, and Liz. And one more, and I cannot remember what her name is. But even the panel down here is redrawn, probably to add some more desperation to this particular part of town, because that's one thing, there's a big difference in the people at the top and the people at the bottom, and I think for the most part, without even adding things like this, Moore and Campbell did a phenomenal job at separating the two. Now here's a subtle difference where one of the characters, he's taken away the mustache from this particular character and made him look a little bit younger. I thought that was a pretty interesting choice. By the way, one thing I didn't note is that Campbell does also the lettering for each of these books. And one more time, how the layout is a little bit different here, what they're looking into, as opposed from the point of view of the building in the original version. And just a few more pages. This chapter is just one of my favorite chapters, this whole setup. There is a subtle change, or actually a big change in the next page. The dialogue has been shifted up to make room for the artwork. But as you can tell, yeah, it's a big change. And it's not the only page. They continue. And probably why I want to keep both versions of the book. The way that it was originally envisioned by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. And then Eddie Campbell tweaking it up to make it look like the vision that he originally saw and wanted to go back and redo. But it's not like that with every panel. It's just sometimes the panels are shifted around, or sometimes panels are redrawn. But it's not very often. It's mainly just a colored version of the original black and white story. So here we have the maps, which I think in this version right here, they can be a little more legible than the black and white version. However, they did leave out the notes here from Eddie Campbell that were written in 1994 from the color version. And then the appendix kicks off in the next page. And see what I mean about the colors just being subtle? Even this glow back here doesn't really change much of the scene. Like, it's still a dark and gritty city. And I don't know, I like it. I like the subtlety, and you can barely tell the colors there. Now, as far as which version is better, I think it depends, right? If you're a purist and you want to go back to the way that it was originally printed and read, like I was with Ninja Turtles, I wanted to go back and read it in black and white. I didn't want to read the works, which is the colored versions of the Ninja Turtles. And this isn't also approved by Alan Moore. I don't think he approves anything anymore these days. This was mainly a call by the artist who wanted to go back and change up a few things. Now, as far as me, I don't know. I think I like the color version. It could be because I just read it, even though it took me some months to finally finish it. But I like it. I like the colors that are added in here. And I love the fact that the artist is the one that got to make the decision, right? Like, it wasn't an editor, or it wasn't somebody that decided to upgrade it with new computer-generated colors. I think the artist is the one that gets to make the call with these kind of things. So I'm okay with the change. I'm okay, or rather the addition of these things. Each book, again, 576 pages. Glossy paper for this particular color version, and thick matte paper for this version. Let's look at the binding. Here is what the eye looks like in the black and white version, and the master edition here. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing either of these versions, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and the page count and the build of each version. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read From Hell, if you have the original graphic novel that came out in 1999, if you have the single anthologies that came out in the 80s or late 80s, early 90s, which version you have, if you prefer one over the other, if you are true to the original black and white, or if you've never read it, which one of these would you like to read? And if you've never seen the movie, even better. The least you know about this particular series, the better off you are. At least that's my opinion. So if you have any more questions, please leave them down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, everyone stay healthy, stay safe out there, and much love.